Ayan. So, again, hello everyone. Today, discuss tayo ng Unreal Engine, yung editor, introduction to it, and then we'll code for a bit, right? So, medyo i-speedrun ko lang itong introduction, and then para we have more time on actual coding. So, let me just share. Baliktad. Yeah. Tapos, ilagay ko na sa kabila. Okay, so, intro. Sa mga di pa nakapag-open ng Unreal Engine, this is what it looks like. Uh, I will teach you guys ano yung mga ibang parts nito, where you can find yung mga like actors, how to create actors, ayun. So we'll go through this for today. So una, we'll talk about yung development workflow. So how does the workflow happen with Unreal Engine? So una, we have the designers where sila yung gagawa ng design ng game and yung level. Tapos sila rin minsan yung mga when it comes to the narrative and the story. So, siya yung mediator between the programmers and the artists. Siya yung nagsasabi kung ano dapat gawin ng artist for the programmers to do. And also the other around, what the programmers need, kailangan gawin ng artist. So, siya yung mediator. Siya rin yung nag-change ng gameplay mechanics kapag feel lang nila. So, minsan, out of the blue, gagawin na ng changes and then lahat ng mga nagawa mo, wala na. So, they also create mechanics that are impossible to implement and sila ang pinakauna sa production line. So, if they get delayed, everything gets delayed. Next, ang artist. So, yes, sila yung visual arts, yung 3D modeling, special effects. So, sila lahat yun. Even animation and level design when it comes to aesthetics. And sila rin minsan yung gumagawa ng mga sobrang high quality na assets na tipong 4K yung image. Pero UI lang yung gagamitin ng image na yun. So sometimes nangyayari yun. Uh, Sila rin yung walang concept sa naming convention, mga final. Ayun. Minsan, yan yung ginagawa nila. And also, they take too much desk space. Ngayon, mga programmers, which is us, we create the prototypes, we implement yung mga game design and expose data for the designer to play around with. So, parang ngayon siya ng gumagawa tayo ng tools para sa designer. Para laruin niya yung mga values to so that he can better uh, make the game uh, balance. Yun.
Sir,
Yes.
I have a question about kasi we moved towards Unreal 5 ngayon,
Mm-hmm.
'di ba? Kasi I think when I was like my first couple of years
Four.
kakalabas ng Unreal, tapos yun nga, tapos sabi ng mga ibang professors matagal pa i-adapt yung bagong engines kasi usually buggy, pero mukhang nakamove na tayo sa Unreal 5.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just curious kung for us, for our generation, is there like focus on like using nanites and the lumen parts of Unreal? Kasi yun yung tanong ko, like for our capstone, would it be better to like, does it matter if we're making a 3D game, just making it on Unreal because it gives a lot less burden
Mm,
on
I
the
guess it
artist?
depends on what you're aiming for with your game. If you want it nga to be like great looking with the lights and all, sure, you can go with
Okay.
Unreal. Pero if you gusto mo lang yung simple na 3D game,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with sticking to Unity for it.
Tapos, does Unreal also support like 2D, or
They
is it
did
just like
not
really?
really support. I mean, you could create a 2D game, but it's not optimized for it.
Okay.
It's
But
not.
like it's possible in a way para makagawa ng like Octopath Traveler? Is that because was Octopath made
Well,
in Unreal? I don't remember. Sorry, sorry.
Octopath, I think is I am not sure. I'm not sure if it was Unity or Unreal.
Okay,
But
okay.
if you could create an well, Octopath kasi is like 2.5
Opo,
or 2.
using 3D assets.
Yeah, exactly. So kaya pa yun. It's just that you have to make it in a way it's not that noticeable na uh, sobrang 2D yung characters mo. Kasi si Octopath, they were
Mm-hmm.
able to put a lot of 3D elements into
Yeah,
their 2D
environments.
yeah,
There.
yeah,
Opo,
exactly.
opo.
Yung mga
Okay,
ganun.
okay. Okay. Kasi I was just wondering kasi ano, yun nga, Unreal 5 na tayo and then, yeah, those were just
Mhm.
my questions. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, you can okay lang. You can stick to Unity. There's nothing wrong with sticking with Unity. But if it really depends on how what the outcome of your game. Ay kung anong gusto mong outcome sa game nyo. Alright? So, okay. Back to this. Programmers. Yeah, we implement yung mga gawa ng ano, yung mga gawa ng designers. We create the tools for it, whatever. We are the slave to the producer and the designer. Whatever they want, we have to do it. There's no there's no buts. Kailangan natin gawin. End of the production line. So, kung nalit yung project, prata tayo yung pinapagalitan kahit na hindi naman talaga dapat. Right. Riddled with bugs on a daily basis. You're also the QA kung walang QA. So, that's very true. You end up taking more time pa nga doing the QA than the programming. And we also turn the bugs into features. Now, as a team, in the past, lahat ng workload na sa programmer, lahat ng mga changes na kailangan gawin sa level, sa sa 3D stuff ng ano, artist, we were the ones who were given that task noon. So designers can now make their own prototypes without knowledge in programming gamit ni Unreal. Kasi nga, madali na uh, yung visual scripting and it doesn't take that much programming skills to use it. So the designers can also implement gameplay mechanics. So ngayon, programmers can focus on the implementation of systems and core classes. Tayo na yung naka-focus na on what we really have to do, which is set up all the systems. Programmers focus on creating productive and efficient tools for designers so they can easily fiddle with the gameplay mechanic. Programmers focus on optimization. So, given that our task or workload is lessened from the artists and designers, we can now focus on what we are meant to do, which is make the game run as good as we can make it. So artists can also do their own job without bothering us. They can simply open Unreal Engine and play around with yung mga materials and stuff. So they can do that. They don't have to learn programming anymore. Unlike si Unity, well ngayon, meron ng ano meron ng node-based visual scripting when it comes to materials. I've nalimutan ko na yung pangalan yun. They have that. But before, they didn't. You really have to code it. And it ends up being the programmer who does the materials. Yung paano mag-shine yung ano, yung object, paano yung uh, lights or whatever, right? So in fact, you can be a one-man team with Unreal Engine. So being the only developer in the team, you need to be a programmer, designer, and artist at the same time. So this is difficult and time-consuming. So Unreal is so powerful that you can build a complex game without writing a single code. So this gave power to designers since they can take the role of implementing the game. Programmers are needed if the game demands fast performance and scalable systems. So yeah, this all says na with Unreal, we can do what we're supposed to do talaga. Now let's talk about Blueprint. So I've said before that Unreal Engine uses a visual scripting um not language pero yung code nila visual scripting and it looks like this. Ito medyo messy pero ang gist of it is isipin nyo ito yung pinaka-start. wherever the red is. And you just have to follow the white line to know where ano yung mangyayari next. So from event tick, we'll go to delay, then we'll go to setting this new variable. It will print, then to set the actor form. Everything here in between is what happens sa mga iba. Like here, sa set, ang sineset na value dito is this new var plus 1. So yun yung sineset na value. Next, itong string, ang sineset niyang value sa string is a int to the floor of pag-add ng rotation of the statue. Basta parang if follow niyo yan. It may look messy pero it's not always like this. So, ang Blueprint is a complete, robust, and visual gameplay scripting system. So, it uses an intuitive node-based interface which has OOP. So, pwede ka mag-OOP here kahit na visual scripting. Blueprint is powerful enough for non-programmers to build a complex game. So Blueprint has access to most of the underlying C++ code. This means lahat ng mga functions sa C++, technically it has also. Minsan nga yung Blueprint has more functions than the C++ class. Where it can even do multiple functions na meron sa C++. So this means Blueprint has as much power as coding. So Blueprint is still similar to coding. You have functions, objects, variables. It's kind of iffy with complex algorithms like procedural generation, complex math. Dahil isipin nyo, isipin nyo yung mga when it comes to complex math or complex algorithms, you'll have so much things happening. So, yeah, medyo nagiging iffy. So, tapos ka na yun at sa mga natapos na yun sa BASPROG 3, wow, good job. And here na, dito na kayo sa GAMPROG. So, di mo kailangan mag-code. So, programmers have their own role in the Unreal Engine workflow. So, jumping right to coding is counterproductive. So, kung nag-C++ agad kayo sa Unreal, medyo mahirapan kayo because ang daming mga functions nandun. Not only that, mabagal rin mag-compile ng code sa C++. So, Unreal has a very steep learning curve. So, the best way to learn it is how designers would learn it. So, kung start muna kayo sa pag-blueprint, and then, kaya pagdating sa GAMPRG 2, magsi-C++ na kayo. So, Unreal C++ API is vast. Since blueprints are equivalent to C++ code, we can familiarize ourselves with the API. The Unreal Engine has quirks that you need to know. Better know them before you start with nitty-gritty code. This means it's better na you learn it more muna sa blueprint. So, if you get used to yung anong ginagawa ng mga function doon sa blueprint, you know how to code it back in C++. So, even though we'll work with blueprints at first, the course perspective is focused largely on programmers. So, we'll learn more about blueprints versus C++ later in the course. But, sa GAMPROG 2 pa kayo mag-C++. So, do we discard blueprints once we start coding? Hindi. You'll actually learn that blueprints and C++ will work together. Any questions? None. Gameplay framework. So, ito yung mga key components niya. Si actor, isipin nyo siya yung pinaka-base na component, which underneath is pawn and character. Then you have components, and then you have controller as the base, where we have player controller and AI controller as the child components. Then you have game mode, game state, player state, map. So, ang important dito is itong si actor, component, controller, game mode. These are four of the important components that you will be using most of the time. Itong ibang mga to, useful siya sa when you start working deeper into Unreal Engine. So, actor. Siya nga ang base class sa objects that can be placed around the world. This can be a complex object like a player or a prop, parang yung trash can na does nothing at all. So you can give it some functions, you can give it some mechanics, or you can choose to give nothing to it at all. Parang static mesh lang siya. Or a mesh. It's just an object that does nothing. So pwede yun. So actor can contain data and behavior. It has its own blueprint. So actors can be spawned and destroyed at runtime. Actor can be inherited to introduce new behavior or simply modify data. So you can choose to make it do other stuff instead of just being a nothing. So actors serve as a container to components, and actors can be ticked, meaning they can do something every frame. Now si Pawn is an actor. It is a child of actor. Pero it is an agent within the world where it can be possessed by either player or an AI through controller. So when we mean possessed, it means what it means. It will be controlled by something. So in this case, a controller. So pawn is not limited to humanoid objects. So it doesn't have to be a human. It can be just a mesh. It can be a moving trash can. Kung trip nyo, pwede. So player is assigned to a single pawn on the start of the game. In games like Candy Crush, the player controlled pawn is unclear. So, di ko alam kung naabutan niyo si Candy Crush, pero ayun nga, hindi siya, you don't even see your own character there. You are, parang, uh, the game itself is like the character or something. Right? Kaya medyo unclear kung ano yung player ko, yung pawn. Next, si character, it is a special type of pawn. And it inherits directly from pawn. So, actor, isipin nyo si actor, next, underneath actor is pawn, and underneath pawn is character. So, it specializes in being for 3D humanoids. So, kakayahan nyo ng ng movement na with gravity, and that it's like for like a humanoid, ayun, si character yun. Or actually, hindi man kailangan na parate humanoid eh. You can choose to have a non-humanoid um, mesh or whatever. Pwede siya eh. As if you need the gravity, you need the movement, ayun, pwede si character. So far, questions? Right? So again, actor base under actor is pawn, which can be possessed. Character is under pawn, which specializes in uh, humanoids.
Sir, I do have a question.
Yes.
So for clarification, yung actor is just like an object,
Yes.
but then if you want an interactable object, you'll have to create a pawn under that
Um,
actor.
Not really interactable. If you want to take control of an actor, then it should be a pawn. So when
Uh,
you mean take control, like you want it to to move around, or
Clara, about like pick up like sa FPS if you want to like a Half Life if you want to pick
mhm,
up an object, is that object just an actor put in or is that
yeah,
a pawn
it's
now?
an actor.
Actor
If
put
it's
in. Okay.
just something to be picked up or whatever, it is an actor. You're not like possessing it. You're not taking control of it. Ang example nito is uh, car. Isipin nyo, di ba, ang kotse. You have to take control of a car. You have to make it move around. Ayun. That is a pawn. Pero hindi siya character because it is, you don't really need the pagka-humanoid or something. I mean, technically be a character, pero better pawn siya. Another thing, siguro like, basta vehicles. Vehicles are a good example for pawns. Ang character, good example for yung character mismo. Kahit nga yung sa first person, ang character nun is the arms. So siya yung you're taking control of. Okay? I hope that answered your question. Any other questions? Sige, next. So controller technically is an actor. It is there, but it doesn't have a like a mesh or a picture, whatever. It is non-physical. Pero ang responsibility niya is to direct or control the pawn. So this controller can either be an AI controller or player controller. So si player controller, kailangan niya ng input from the player. So when I mean input like WSD or pag-move ng mouse, ayun. Yung AI controller, um, kailangan niya gamitin yung mga AI functions. So it will not take in any player input at all. So both of these inherit
Sorry,
sa
I have another question now.
controller. Yes.
Pag kasi AI controller.
Mhm.
So could if you have an AI controller, like let's say let's ano, twisted metal, so puro kotse, diba? So yung
Uh-huh.
mga kalaban mo na cars din, those are now also pawns.
Yes.
Okay.
They are
Kasi kahit
pawns.
AI controlled sila, hindi sila actors,
Uh-huh.
they're gonna be pawns. Okay, okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yeah, correct. They are pawns because they will now get controls from a controller na AI. So tama yun. Next, controllers take control of a pawn through the possess function. So same thing, you can also unpossess the pawns with the unpossess. So controller receives input events and there is a one-to-one relationship between controllers and pawns, meaning a pawn can never have more than one controller. One-to-one siya. So same thing, a player can only take control of one pawn at a single time. It can't control multiple pawns. Isa lang. Okay? Questions? Other questions? Next, game mode. Game mode defines the rules of the game. So if it's a open world, may set of rules, meaning how many players can enter the game, ano mangyari kapag na-pause yung game, and when to trigger cinematics. So, si game mode, nag-inherit siya sa game mode base. Dahil, si game mode is actually for FPS games. Kasi nga, si Unreal was made for Unreal Tournament. So that's why what you would use is game mode base instead, which is may custom game. You can implement custom game rules. So a game mode is tied to a map. So in order to change the game mode, you must change the map. So one-to-one relationship yun. So map has only a game mode. Only one. Next, in a multiplayer environment, game mode only exists in the server. In this case, kasi may server, may client. Ang game mode, nasa server lang siya. So all games run on the server, including single player games. It's just connecting locally. Ayan. Questions? So kung kailangan nyo, like, ano mangyari kapag namatay si player, game mode should be handling it. Kasi siya yung nagde-define ng rules. Are maps considered scenes? Yes. In Unity basis, they are like scenes. Pero si game mode, you can't really compare it sa Unreal unless you have a like game manager. Right. So nangyari is si Unreal, it has these components, the key components na andun na. You cannot have nothing sa game mode. Kailangan talaga may game mode. Unlike si Unity, you start from scratch talaga. And then you start adding yung mga components na kailangan mo. Game state. Now, game state, you won't really be going through this, but in the midterms or finals, but it's something that good to know. So it contains a state of the game that is usually not stored on actors. So this should not be specific to any individual player. So ang mga values niya, it can be like number of players or yung quest that you have to complete in an open world game. So game state is contained in the game mode. So isipin nyo kung si game mode is logic, si game state yung pag-store ng data. Game state exists on the server and all clients. So this makes it easier for clients to replicate data from the server. So ang nangyari is the clients don't have to get values from from the server parate. They will they will replicate yung mga values nila through using game state. So both the client would know ang state ng server through game state. Game state is static class of vars, not really static. Could it be considered static? Not really eh. Ang game state, it works na it's not really public yung mga values. Ang ginagawa niya is it replicates the values from the server to the client. It becomes ano, it's like a multiplayer kind of thing. So yun yung ginagawa niya sa background. Kapag nag-change ang game state sa server, it would replicate it to for the player. That way, it doesn't use too much like data, like pati na check yung data through the server. Hindi. Somehow, the state sa client is always updated from the server na hindi siya nagbe-break ng game. So yeah, not really yan eh. Hindi siya talaga static uh, variable. So okay, so yun nga. It's useful for multiplayer games, but for single player games, you don't really have to. Kahit sa game mode na bahala dun. Player state, it is the state of the player connected to the server. So, lahat ng mga score or number of kills, parang ganun. So, in Pal World, if anyone has played it, ang player state, ang alam niya is yung mga gamit ni player. It takes the data of that. Receive niya. Again, this might be overkill if you're just building a single player. So, player state, not really useful when it comes to single player. So, it would look like this. Si player controller, pwede siya mag-join sa game. Kasi ito yung si player. This is player. Hindi siya yung pawn. Ito siya. So, yung player controller, pwede siya mag-contain ng parang HUD, input, camera manager. So, in order for you to have a HUD, you have to like let player controller know na, mag-add ako ng HUD sa'yo. So now, he owns a HUD. Then, si player controller and AI controller, they can possess a pawn. So yun lang. And yeah, that's it. So you don't really have to memorize this one. You will go through it naman. But it just gives you an idea how it works. So you player would always start as a player controller. Then if it wants to join a game, whatever, it joins the game. It joins yung game mode. And then when it enters, it will start using a pawn. Alright? So yung mga data or whatever, hindi siya dito sa player controller. Any questions?
Yeah.
Or clarifications? Sure. What's up?
Sorry.
Ah.
So, saan mo for clarification lang, saan mo i-keep yung mga variables?
Variables, wala dito.
Like for like let's
Player
say
state.
player state. No,
Depende.
no,
Variables
I
of
mean
like,
let's say player life, and then attack damage. Like let's say if this was like a third person RPG, so you wanted to keep like weapon damage, life, mana. Where would
uh-huh.
those variables be kept?
Um, life, mana, depend. Oh, wait lang. Let me, technically player state, pero it really depends if you have like items and whatever.
Mm,
Usually si player state ang may hawak nun. So what
okay.
happens is player state may yung server may copy siya of the player state. So ang kailangan niya malaman is kung sino yung player na yun. Then it will base it on that. Then it will
So,
give those data like
so
HP
yung
or amount of items. It will give it to
so
the
yung
player.
parang player state or game state. So it's kind of like a game manager, but instead of keeping stuff within the object, you just kind of instance it into the game state. Is kind of what I'm understanding now. Like
Um,
you're just putting everything into the game state, and then it just tracks that player. Kasi before
mhm,
like okay, like yung nahirapan kasi ako imagine. Hindi ko pa kasi nabuksan yung Unreal. So I don't know how objects interact pa, diba?
mhm, mhm,
But like so enemies have its own variables. And then the
mhm.
player has its own variables like attack damage and then HP and life and then enemies have HP and life. And those were kept in for me like classes within that in this instance actor. So like do actors hold any variables or pawns hold any variables?
Okay. Uh, when it comes to multiplayer games, because it gets a bit complicated, you'll need to, let's say for the player to go back, di ba kailangan niya yung mga items niya, whatever. Yun yung use ng player state. Pero when it comes to like how much HP the player has, how much HP the enemy has, it's on their own actors. So, player state is really just for like able to save yung data.
It's like local storage. But like
Uh,
okay, so actors will still have they'll still have variables. We're not
yeah,
like
yes.
pushing it because I remember like some people would push everything to game manager. So like in Unity, so game manager would have access like would you would be pulling the
Oh no.
player's HP from game manager. Right? So I was just worrying if that was
No,
gonna
no,
be a
no, no, no,
case.
no, no. Di naman, di naman. Though they can you can still store variables in the actor. It's just that when it comes to multiplayer games, it gets a bit complicated na. We won't tackle that naman through in this course. So, yeah. Game state, player state, yung dalawa na yun, hindi natin itatakle yan dito. Any other questions? Sige. If no questions, let us code a bit in Unreal. So, yung mga di pa download ng Unreal, again, you need si Epic Games Launcher, and then you should be able to access the Unreal Engine, and then you need 5.2.1. So, gawa tayo ng bago. To create a new project, if you go click games, ito yung lalabas ng mga template. First person, third person. And for now, we can use third person. Then make sure it's blueprint, desktop. Well, up to you. Starter content is useful. Yeah, well, yeah, use it muna. Huwag kayo mag-ray tracing kung gusto nyo, mabagal ng computer. Project name, write demo. Demo project 2. GAMPRG demo. Project location, kayo na bahala. You can place it anywhere. So when you create it, i-initialize nyo muna. It might take a while, but eventually, this is what you'll see. Okay? So, sometimes it's not like this here. Paiba-iba. Kung ito yung nakita nyo, ito yung outliner. Outliner, it has the list of actors in the map. So, lahat ng blocks, if you go to SM Cube 1, ayan. Ito yun siya. Or Cube 9, ito yun. So, it holds all the objects, actors. So, in Unity, it's like the hierarchy. So, kapag child of child siya, when you move it, it will move together. Then, down here, usually wala tong SQL settings. It's details. Details gives the details of whatever yung selected na of actor. So if I select SM chamfer cube 2, ito yung details niya. Location, rotation, scale, ito yung transform. And then, depende sa object, pwede siya magkaroon ng static mesh, physics, collision, and other stuff. Pero those are usual yung pinaglalaroan natin. Everything else, not that much. Then, sometimes wala to, pero kung meron kayo, ito yung place actors. Kung wala to, it's window, place actors. Ang use lang nito is you're able to add stuff into the map by simply just clicking and dragging. So if I go to shapes, I can add a cube by click, drag, and then nandyan siya. Just like in any program, you can control Z to undo mga changes mo. So this is useful. You'll actually use this later on when it comes to other stuff in area. So it has other stuff in here. You can play around. You can even have a spotlight if you want. Okay. Next, yung arrow to. This arrow represents the axis and where to move. So right now, ang nakaselect is yung select and translate objects. So if I click and drag the arrows, it will move in that axis. So ito yung x-axis, y-axis, z. So on Unity, it's x, y, z. No, joke. X, y, z. That really depends on where the camera is facing at. Okay? So usually z is depth. Now if I press the rotate, it will show the other angles again. The x, the z, and the y. And I am able to rotate by click and drag. So if I want to rotate in the z-axis, ayan, I click here, and then I rotate it. And finally, scale. If I want to change the scale, I can pull on one side like on its x-axis, ito yung y-axis niya, ito yung z-axis. And if I just want to move everything, I can click in the middle and then click and drag. If I only want it in the x and y, I can click on this edge, this arrow, um this line. Then it'll only move sa x and y. Okay? Uh you can also do it by clicking on the keyboard. For this W for translate, E for rotate, R for scale. So andyan naman siya eh. Ayan, so on the right, on the select and translate object, ayan, W. And then may E and then R. So I hope, let me know if okay lang sa inyo yung FPS na to, the 5, because of the text readability. I can choose to make it go higher, but people will have to tell me if nagsistruggle yung stream nyo. Kasi baka nakakalito to.
It's clear. It's just really, it feels really laggy.
Okay. How
But like
about,
it's clear. So
how about if I do this 15 frame rate? 15 should be more bearable than 5. Okay?
yeah, it's a lot better. Thank you,
Uh,
sir.
then if you want to move around the in this what you call this editor, you can hold right click and then move your mouse around. This is to look around. So again, hold right click to look around. Then if I want to move around as well, I can hold right click and then press the WASD keys. So W and S will go more forward and backward depending on where the camera is facing at. While A and D will strafe left and right depending on where the camera is looking. You can also choose to just hold left click. It will move you. So if I hold left click and move my mouse forward, it will go towards uh, the forward direction. Pero no matter where, okay lang kung asan naka-point yung camera. Forward will be just flat on the axis. Unlike yung sa right click, it'll actually follow the camera rotation. Alright? So if I hold left click and look left and right, I am looking left and right. Okay? Um, what else? This one's you can play around with it, but this is simply like for grid snap. So if I want to snap it by 50 units, so it will snap for each 50 units. Or if I want to snap it for 1 unit, and then you see it should be smooth. Another thing is the rotation snap. So if I want to snap it every 90 degrees, you will notice that it only rotates for 90 degrees. Then finally scaling, snap. And if I want to make it scale per 0.1 units, pwede. Or if I want it per 10 units, ayan, mag-jump siya. Camera speed, it depends on how fast or slow the camera you want. You want the camera speed to be. So kung like 0.1, you'll notice that my forward and my side is very slow. So if I return this to 1, same thing with speed, scalar speed. It will multiply. So 3 times 3, that's really fast. Okay, so yun lang for this part. Ito, you can play around again. It will show like this perspective of the camera. Or if you want to change the view mode, if you want uh, wireframe, or if you want to unlit where there's no shadows, ayan, makikita mo dito. And then show this one, there's a lot of ticks, but you can just leave it as is. It just depends on what you want to see. Okay, let me just close Steam. Then, if you want to show yung Explorer or wherever your files are, it is this content drawer. And then it will show all your assets in your project. Character, level prototyping. So I think starter content kanina. Here I can check all the shapes. By double clicking, I can check all the audio. I can even play it here. Or I can check the maps as well. Alright. So it's here in the content drawer. If you want, now you'll notice that if I play around with the level, naka-close yung content drawer. You can choose to make it dock. So now that it's docked, it will stay there no matter what. Okay? And then, yung kanina, hope you guys are gets nyo naman. Kanina may world settings dito, which is actually quite important. So if I go to Windows and click on world settings, it should pop up here. What it has is parang you can set the game mode in here. You can choose what game mode you wanted to use. Let's say, PP third person game mode. Ayan. Lalabas siya dito. And you'll notice you have the pawn, controller, the whole game mode, and then the states, which we won't be touching naman. Okay? So, usually that's the use of world settings. Itong game mode. That to not really. I haven't really used it that much. Alright. So, that is our editor. Now, if we go to our blueprint, in order to create a new blueprint, you right click in the content browser, and then you have blueprint class. And then you'll see that we have actor, pawn, character, player controller, whatever. These are the parent classes. So if I want to create an actor, I can just click on actor, give it a name, demo actor, save it, and when you open it, double click it, it looks like this. It's a whole different screen. Ang ito naman, you still have the details of the actor. But in here, we have the components. Ang components, kung ano ng mga components ni actor, lalabas siya dito. Like, you have like a sphere. Ayan, lalabas yung sphere dito. Or yung cube. Ayan, cube. So those are components. Well, see my blueprint, this holds yung mga functions, variables, event dispatchers. Ayan, andito siya. So, if I create a function, lalabas siya dito. If I create variables, lalabas siya dito. I can even give it a data type, either float, string, and there's more. Marami to. I can even choose to make it a array, pero later on na yan. Okay? So again, if you click on anything, ang details, naka-update siya. So right now, connected to new var. I clicked on new var. Here, I have the details of the new var. I can change the name. I can change the data type here. And then other stuff. Now, with the blueprint mismo, this is what you will always see. Begin play, actor begin play, event tick. Sorry, actor begin overlap, and then event tick. These are the usual three functions that are here that you can choose naman to delete. Up to you. So in order to traverse the event graph, you just have to hold right click and move your mouse. And this is how you look around your blueprint. You can zoom in and zoom out using your mouse scroll wheel. So in here, you don't really use your WASD. Hindi mo kailangan. Well, wala rin siyang use. Okay, so far, I hope now gets you pa. Now, if I want to make my actor have like a sphere, sure, I can just put sphere and di siya lalabas, di ba? Nasa viewport siya. Viewport is where you'll see what your actor looks like. Ayan. This is what our actor looks like. There's a sphere. Si event graph, ito yung kanina, yung may mga events. Si construction script. Si construction script happens before begin play. Which means the moment the actor is created, this runs first, and then later on, event begin play will run after. Okay? What else? Sige, balik tayo. So, ito yung sphere natin. So, we can create a sphere or we can create a static mesh. And then, on the details, we add the sphere. So, if you click on the on this one, the none, lalabas yung mga static mesh. So static mesh, yung mga meshes. So these are just meshes na nasa starter content. So in this case, I want my sphere. I want my shape sphere. So here we are, our shape sphere. We can choose to move it around again. Maybe change its angle, change its scale. Right, sorry. Kasi yung scale ko nasa 10. So if I do like 0.1. Ayan. Okay, so same thing. Pares lang siya dito, how you move around. It's right click, hold right click, and then WASD, or hold left click, and then use your mouse. Questions? Any questions so far? Wala pa. Sige. So, ayun. So, you can try creating your own actor. Pwede kayo maglagay ng mga cubes. Pwede kayo gumawa ng static mesh. And then, you can change the mesh to something else like a torus. Ayan, lalabas siya dito. I can even change the material. So you can change the material to whatever you want. This is all from the starter content. So if I change it to brick clay, here we have our brick clay material. I can also change the static mesh material. The torus. I can give it just maybe door. Ayan. Ito yung door material. It looks like that because it's actually used for yung door. Pero ginagamit natin dito. Alright. Now, if I want to place the actor on the world, I can simply click and drag it into the world. So if you have a custom actor, you can simply just drag it. I can even edit here. Let's say I want another static mesh. It is behind the cube. I want it to be a bush behind the cube. If I compile it, if you go back here to our level, andyan na yung bush. That's how you create a actor. So actor, again, it can have some, you can give it some functions or it can just be nothing. So if I want to give it a function, like let's just say add offset, add actor world offset on event tick, meaning every frame. I can make it move to the x-axis ng 1. So every frame, it is moving to the right by 1 unit. Compile. And I play this. It should move. We can actually make it better by like depending it on the delta seconds. So I can, sorry, right. In order for you to connect things together, like in here, event tick, I hold on the white and drag it to wherever. In this case, the add actor world offset. Now it's connected, meaning if I play this, ito yung nangyayari. From event tick, it goes to add actor world offset. If I want to make it go to the X value, like 10 units per second and not per frame, I can multiply. Multiply this by 10 or delta seconds if you okay. See delta seconds, this is the frame per second. So if I say if I multiply this to 10, meaning on 1 second it will actually move by 10. That's what's happening here. So delta seconds times a unit, meaning each frame it will move delta seconds times 10 units. But after 1 second, you eventually reach 10. So anyway, let's go back here. So add actor. If I just want to change the X value, I can right click and split. And now it is split to each value. Kasi ito kanina vector siya. If I make it split, it is now for each float. So compile again and play. It is now moving 10 units per second. Do you see that? Uh, on our demo actor, if you count it, 1, 2, 3. What's that? 10 units per second. 10 units per second. So that is our actor. Then I can also create a function if you want. So let's say, delete muna natin to. So function, let's say move. On move, when move is called, I wanted to add offset. Add actor world offset. So it will move, when this is called, it will move to the Z naman. 10 units. So in order for me to call that, I can simply click and drag it into our blueprint and lalabas siya. Or if you want, you can right click anywhere. Lalabas itong all actions and then type move. And usually ang lalabas is yung functions mo muna. And here it is. Now this will move 10 units per frame and not per second. So you should see a faster speed. Ayun, nasa langit na. Then you'll notice it is way fast. In order for me to, let's say, multiply this like by 10, just like any function, you can give it a parameter like input. So now with the input, I can change it to like delta seconds and then make it a float. Then in here, I'll just split this again. I want to multiply delta seconds to 10. Compile, and you'll see on our event graph, meron na siyang delta seconds. In this case, I will connect it to this. So what's happening? On each tick, delta seconds is being used here as a move. And as a move, we are multiplying this float to 10. And then set natin sa Z. So if you play it, it should go up 10 units per second and not per frame. So that is functions. Kapag variable naman, we can set a variable here. Let's say move of value. So this move value, if we compile, right now, it says here, please compile the blueprint. Para yung default value, lalabas siya dito. So by default, maybe I want 10 units. So I can use this by right-clicking here, get move value. And you'll see, andito yung pagkuha ng move value. I can also just simply click and drag this. And may lalabas, get or set. So if I want to set the move value, I call set. If I just want to get it, get. And let us use that here. With this one, maybe let's change it to 50. So it will move 50 frames per second. And if I play this, it should go up 5 times faster. So there are different types of variables here that you can play around. Integer, float, vector, and there's so much more. Let's say vector. If I change it to vector, mangyari is may red dito dahil ginamit natin eh. You can do is you can just remove this line by holding Alt and then left click. It should be gone. You can also right click here naman eh. Right click, break this link. Sure, that works. Pero shortcut is Alt and then left click. Now si move value, if you check here move value sa float, diba? Kasi di pa natin nako-compile. And you compile it, then lalabas na yung default value. In this case, let's say CY. Let's make it 10. So, ang kagandahan nito is I can actually multiply a float to a vector. So, I can delete this. Let us call this multiply. And then just connect this. Iba na siya. So, instead of a float, ito, kita nyo, float times float, ang kalabasan niya dapat is a float. But float times vector, ang kalabasan niya is vector because we are simply multiplying this float to each of its vector. So ito, pwede natin balik. Kasi kailangan natin yung yellow. Kung ganito, di natin malilink. So let us bring it back together and then connect it together. Compile and play. So it's moving 10 units per second to the Y. Okay. I hope gets yun naman yung variable and function.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Or more just like I would like to ask if you could do an example
Off.
of because right now we have like the parameter for move speed inside the object. Is there a way to like kasi kanina you had delta seconds as a parameter, so in the print for the event graph we're pulling the delta seconds from event tick.
Uh-huh.
Well, what if we have our move variable in the event graph? Like, what if eh, something is like, like what if we had a variable for the move value in the event tick that we want to push into the move function? How do we add parameters again to the move function?
Here.
Yeah.
So if you check your function, you can add inputs. So
Ah,
these
okay,
are the
okay. That's it.
inputs.
So
So
you
you
can
can
okay,
add
that's easy.
more other stuff.
Yeah, and then it's there, and then you
And
just put it
then
from event graph.
yeah, it'll pop up here.
Okay, okay. That's okay. Cool. That's all.
There's also
Thank you.
output actually. Output, let's say output of here. I want the output to
Uh,
be, I don't know, anything like vector.
uh,
You'll see that on the event graph, may output na siya dito. I think, ano
may
mangyayari?
hinahanap na siya.
No, more of like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's giving
Okay,
this
okay,
ano.
okay.
Ito yung
It's gonna
hinahanap,
push
ito
it, like,
yung binibigay.
pinapush.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Cool, cool.
So
Thank
that
you.
is,
I think na-miss ko yung kanina. Or I
okay.
get it just kasi green and green. Akala
Yeah.
ko auto na yan, so I was like, maybe it's different. Sige, thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay, so that's input, output. Uh, so that's, well, that's the blueprint. So again, if I right click, this is why this is good for um designers kasi they don't have to learn what what uh what function or how to do whatever. They can simply go like add add offset or maybe set actor location. Ayun. If I wanted to be set there, sure. So pwede to. Or you can also have yung mga AI. There's AI here. Actually, medyo mahirap yung pag dito. Like, move to. Move. to, ayan, move to location, may mga AI. So it's simply just searching it here kung ano kailangan nyo gawin. So this is for actor. Error because dapat wala tong ano, new param. If you notice, si move, wala siyang new param. I'll just compile this, or I can just delete this and then call move again. Ayan, it fixed itself. Okay, so that is blueprint. So to unlink, you just alt left click. If I want to make it clean, you can actually add additional nodes in between by double clicking anywhere on the line. Gagawa siya ng bagong node. And this is just for aesthetic, or not aesthetic, para malinis. Because eventually you have so many more functions. Maybe you want it to look better or something. Or here. Sometimes you need this here. Pwedeng ganito. Or pwede mong inisin ng ganito. So that's up to you. Or gusto mong ganito, ayun, pwede rin to. So up to you. How you set your blueprints. So again, that's by double clicking. So delete. Any questions so far? So that's event tick. Si move, kung ginawa natin, let's say, let's make, no, I don't want to use delta seconds here. I want to remove this. Let's put it back to how it was before. Let's say here in X. If on begin play, what happens is it only runs once and never again. So if I make this, well, manito, delta seconds, I set it to delta location X. So on begin play, at the start, we should see that it will move to the X axis by 100. So actually di siya ata. Lagyan natin sa Y. So from here, it's gonna move to the left. And only once. Because begin play only runs once. While event tick runs every frame. Questions? None? None. Like start, update. Yes, exactly like start. This is start. This is update. Start only runs once. And here it is. Update runs every frame. Ito yun. Kaya may delta seconds yun. And if you recall, there's awake. This is kind of like awake. It happens way before this. So how do we test it? Let's say I want it, I'll debug. Message. Oops. Debug. Ano ito? Print string, sorry. So this one, it'll just print a string. On here, construct. And then on begin play, I will print world. So, si hello mauna, and then si world next. I play this. Nawala si hello. Bakit nawala si hello? Ay, natangkapit niyo yung ano. Usually, it should. Wait. Yep, nope. It's not. Duration 2. Okay. Wag yung gamitin, basta wag yung gamitin construction script. Construction script. There's a way to use this, but not by printing a string. But believe me na lang, this runs first before this. Okay. Any other questions? Yung next part, we have to go through it, but it's not something you have to memorize. It's gonna be a mouthful, and we're gonna cram it for what? Either 10 or 20 minutes. Medyo overtime na tayo. Ay, baka sabaw na yung mga utak nyo at this point. So, itong part na to, Unreal 5 made it complicated. Unlike si Unreal 4. So, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll show you the... Saan ba yan? Ito. This is the template na yung ginawa natin. And you'll notice here that there's... Here, ito. Ito lang. Ito may enhanced input. What's happening is it's adding movement input based on the X and Y values. That's what's happening here. Same thing with jump. All it does is when this is called, it'll jump. Kapag na-complete, it'll stop jumping. Same thing here with the camera input. On when it's triggered, I will add the controller yaw input based on the X and add the controller pitch input using the Y. And then this part, they just had to add this because I'm unsure with Unreal 5 pero kailangan nyo gawin to so that everything works down here. Without this, none of this works. I'll show you why. So if you noticed, it has a IMC default. This IMC default. This actually holds the mappings. So see jump, spacebar, touch, 1, or gamepad. See move, it uses the WSD, then up, down, right, left. And see look, it uses the XY axis of the mouse or the right thumbstick. So it has all the mappings. But the thing is, like itong part na to, they're all different. If you check the modifiers, this has a swizzle. I'll talk about it later on. This has a swizzle and a negate. See A, it just has negate. And then see D, wala siya. Meaning, based on the D value, this will just be positive. Kapag na-pressing D, it's like 1. Kapag hindi na-pressing D, 0. Kapag na-pressing A, it should be 1. Pero dahil sa modifier na negate, or in other words, parang times in-invert niya, it goes negative 1. Ito, si W, 1 siya dapat, pero since na-swizzle natin or we rotated it, instead of on the x-axis, it goes 1 on the y-axis. So, itong part ito, it's just really complicated, but we have to go through this. And then finally, yung S, if you press S, it will give a value of 1, but we swizzle it. So it is now on the y-axis na 1, but then we negate it or we invert it. So negative 1. So that's what's happening here. Si look, hindi siya, wala naman siya dapat eh. Ang ginawa lang niya is negate lang si XY. But we will go through this. In order to do the movement, this is because this is milestone 1. Gawa ko ng folder just so it's cleaner. Controller. To do that movement, we have to know what moves do we need. Forward, backward, left, right. Kung yun lang, we can do an input action. I will call this move input action. So if I want, this will be the forward, backward, left, and right. Kung ayaw nyo yun, if you just want to work with one axis, you can just go to input, move input action. This is forward, move input, and this is side, move input. Okay, and then we'll go through this later. So we have all these inputs here. Make sure that it has the right value type. So see move input, since this should have been the forward, backward, left, right. That is 2D. But if you only want the move input on just one axis, that is axis 1D. Ayan. So that's it. This one, wala makato. Then, we have to map it, right? To map it, right click here, input, input, mapping, context. So this is demo, input, mapping, context. So map it. In order to map it, we have to specify what action. So see move. Technically, it's the same thing as a while ago. For the key, I press D. Kapag D, it's just 1. So if I press D, it's just 1. If I press A, it should go to the other way. So I will negate. If I want to go forward, I should set this W. I should swizzle it, meaning change the input into the y-axis. And finally, for backwards, I have to swizzle and then negate. What if you did only the single axis? Okay lang. Let's say yung forward move input. If I press W, nothing happens because I have to go forward. If I press S, I want it to go backward. I will just negate. And then same thing with the other one, the sideward. If I press D, it will just go to the right. If I press A, it will go to the left. Negate. Okay, so it's either this one, you use just this one, or you can use both of this. It all depends on how you map it in your pawn. So, we have that. Gawa tayo ng controller. Let's say player controller. This is demo player controller. So in here, if you recall the inputs that we have, forward move input, side move input, whatever, you can actually search it here. Move input action. And here we have our move input action. Events. Kasi value, it gives a value. Pero move input action, if you do the events, it shows this. So what happens? If I want it to make go forward, I will, in this case, I'm the controller. I have to get the pawn first. So itong si player pawn, sorry, not get player pawn, get control pawn. So okay, wala to kanina, diba? I'm just gonna tell you, I'm just gonna show you this. Wala to kanina because this was done on the character. Right now, I'm doing it on the controller. And I need to make this, the pawn, the whatever that I'm possessing, to move. So I have to get its, get controlled pawn, and then add movement input. And there we have pag move. So world direction. So this is the part where it gets a bit tricky. So we have action value here. Again, we can split it. World direction. Again, we can split this. So for X, I'll just go X. For the Y, I'll just go with Y. I'll just go with that. And then, yung kanina, yung ginawa niya na, what do you call this? The enhanced input local player subsystem. A mouthful. In here, we just have to enhanced input. Ayan, ito yung lalabas. You have the local player system and then player controller. In this case, it is the player controller. Nope, not one. Mali. Enhanced. It's this one. Those are two different things. You'll notice that this one has no node. Pero ito, may node siya dito. What I want is this one. So this one, we have this here. We add mapping context. Connect this. And then we choose the one that we created. Demo input mapping context. Ayan. So this is our movement on our controller. So marami nangyari, pero it's okay. You don't have to memorize it. You watch it again. This is not your fault. They just really just made it complicated. So how do we test it out? I need to create muna another character. So I'll just right click, blueprint class, character, demo character. And then just for testing purposes, I will just add a cube. That's all. A cube. Then, how do we test it? In here, we have the world settings. So I will just change the pawn class to be the demo character. And then the player controller class to be the demo player controller. Ito yung nagawa natin. Yan, demo player controller, demo character. Okay? So if you play it, delete ko muna to. Baka may mangyari. If I play this, I pressed, hold on. Di ako gumagalaw. Player controller, mapping context. No. Ay, test ko lang to. Baka dahil dito. But I will just remove the collision of this. So I should be able to move. Why am I not moving? Controller, XY, add movement input. Oh. Demo input, IE move. It's supposed to work. We can always check it. Why? If it's gonna print a string. So if I press WASD, oh, it doesn't take it. Hold on. Demo character, demo player controller. It's not taking my WASD. Did I forget something? Target. IMC default. Demo input mapping. IA move. Sorry, not IA move. Move input action. Sorry. Mali ako. Dapat si move input action. Ito yung ginawa natin. So, it wasn't being called because we wanted move input action. Pero, ang nakaselect dito was IA move. So, again, balik tayo. We should be able to move. So, this is WASD. Ayan. Ang mali ko lang dito is the modifiers dito because it was not moving how I wanted. D became forward. Why D became forward? X? Right. Yeah, I mean, I can just fix it here. This is swizzle. This is swizzle with negate. This is nothing. And then this is just negate. So it should work properly. Honestly, hindi. Di siya gumagana. Mali pa rin. It's more of like playing around with this. D? D? Swizzle. Bakit? Eh. Baka yeah, my bad. It's because of the camera. But anyway, that's how you set the controls for the player. Now I think you should be able to read this rin in the Dropbox kung nalito kayo. Or if not, you can follow this. Just make sure that tama yung mga siniset nyo dito. If you want to use the forward and move input, you can do that also here. Forward input. Then you'll notice it's using a float because yan yung sinet natin dito. So float, I will get the pawn that I am controlling. That this controller is possessing, and then add movement input. And then in this case, it will move forward. My forward is X. Am I right? My forward is X. Yep. And then the side move input. Get controlled pawn. I will now add movement to my side. My Y. So ito,
Sir,
yes.
why couldn't you just attach it to the? Why did you create another add movement input? Why did couldn't could you not attach it to the
Like here.
forward? Yeah.
Because this will only run if I am pressing the keys for the forward move input, which we set,
Oh,
right? WS.
okay.
So if I put this here,
So reds are like conditions, or like what?
this
It
one.
only run if
Yeah, they're like
the
events.
condition.
They're yeah.
Okay,
They're
yeah,
events.
okay.
So this is called when uh this is being pressed because that's what we set. Okay. That's why we created a new one. If we do this kasi it's gonna mess up something, and if I press the side keys, it won't run because I have
But
to press this.
there's like no way to consolidate this because that makes it look super clunky. Like I said, about like for coding, you try to refactor everything.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So when you see duplicates of stuff, it feels kind of gross.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you have get controller, you have like the three,
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh.
everything, the green that you have three greens that are the exact same, and then the three blues are the exact same. So
Uh-huh,
that's
uh-huh.
like, there's no way to consolidate that, like putting it into update or like I don't know. Um,
Uh the best way is this one where it combines the X and Y,
okay,
but
okay.
you have to
So
like make it correct and all.
up, up.
So,
Okay, okay.
yeah. I mean, as long as you want to hide it in a function, sure. Pwede naman. You're gonna create a function here, like set movement or something. I don't know. Pwede naman to. Parang andito yung like
And then it'll have
get
like
control.
an if case statement to check if it's an X or Y value you're changing. Can you
Pwede.
have
You can do
could
that
you have the
too.
could you have the triggers, like could you have both triggers go to the function? Sorry, this is getting
Add both
complicated.
triggers to the
So like you have a function, so you have two reds because one is up and down, the other one's left and right. Could you
uh-huh.
have both of those go into a function
No, no.
that?
You cannot add this into the function or
Okay,
anything. Only we
okay.
can do is like uh call the function. Pero this one wala. Dito lang talaga in the event graph. All right. So yeah, there are ways to clean it. This is the cleanest way, but you have to get everything right. In this case, I think the camera was wrong. So let me just add a camera component in here, and hopefully everything is right. So anyway, play. I'm still wrong. the why is W
I think this is sa bottom left of the map. I think
I
tabingin
sorry
yung y-axis ng mismong map.
in here?
The green
Oh, you're
is
right. The camera
I
for
don't
some
know
yeah,
I
you're
don't
right,
know
right,
why
right.
the cam is sideways.
You'll notice that it is actually rotated. So if you bring it back here, it's facing the right direction. But you can't see it though. Let's just use this as point for reference. Ito, point of reference natin. So you're right. Dahil naka-rotate and now it's working correctly. There's a way naman to base it on how where the pawn is facing by getting its forward. And then what happens is we can either set this one here as the direction, this is as the scale, or you can just multiply this together and then put it here. Same thing. So what happens is it will go forward wherever the pawn is facing. And this is, we can go get actor right. So this is the right vector wherever the right of the actor is. And then just combine the scales. Or I mean, you can multiply it to put it here, or you can just set this to the scale. So what happens is, yes, this will go forward, backward, left, right. But if I change the angle, this is the player start. This is where it will look. If I change it to, let's say, to the back, it should still go forward, backward, left, right. So I'm not sure if you went through that's a iOS or Android prog using the forward vector and the right vector. But I think will also appear naman in the big sky. So check na lang sa Dropbox. It should tell you also. If you're gonna do this in just here, it's gonna be a bit messy. There's no clean way in doing it, but basically you have to do it twice. So this one here, For the forward, I will get the Y, and then for the side movement, I have to do add movement input again, and then this is the scale, and then get actor right. So it's very messy, but this will work. It's just that all the lines are jumbled up now.
So the red can't be like the triggered condition can't go to multiple blue. Kasi bakit tinukton mo yung add movement to the next add movement? Why couldn't you do the triggered to the second add movement?
Which one? What?
Yung sa right,
Uh huh.
yung sa pinakadulo,
Uh huh.
bakit connect mo yung unang movement input sa kanya kaysa galing sa triggered?
Ah, because you can only have one line.
Ah,
So imagine sa code mo, 'di ba, from top to bottom. Same thing.
opo.
It will go here. There's no like
Ah,
run at the same time. So you'll notice that
okay. It'll delete the
nakakat
other
siya.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Actually, there's a way to make this cleaner, but you get the point. Uh, so test this out again. I can remove this, and it should still work the same. Ish. Okay. Uh, yeah. So that's it. Lang this part, you can just watch it or you can read it sa Dropbox. Okay lang. Medyo complicated tong part na to. But ito tell you naman how to properly create your character. As long as you know how to add the components or set the um, meshes that you need. Ayan. All right. Any questions or clarification? None. All good. None. It's okay. So if you have any questions or you need to clarify, you can always feel free to message here, or you can message me. Then we uh can talk about it. Yeah, info overload. Yeah, yeah, I know. Medyo info overload. Pero at least this part malaman nyo because for Muscles 1. Pero by next week we'll go through this again. We'll just yeah, we'll just go through this again. We'll go through it probably more. I'll teach you more things about this. So try nyo gawin yung milestone 1 just to give you guys a bit of feel of the editor. Then kung may di
So
kayo na gets, you can feel free to ask me. You can just watch this again. Ayun.
I have one more question, sir.
Yes.
Sorry. Um, ano yung reason like looks a lot easier compared sa yung yung example kanina kasi sabi mo ata yung code yung blueprint is inside the player or the actor. Ano yung
This one.
logic? Yeah, ano yung logic why you would put that in the player or
Uh,
versus how we're putting it in the uh event manager?
yeah. So ideally, this is because this will only work if you're only using this character for that. Pero what if you want your controller to work with other characters? Because you'll notice that we're just getting the controller and then adding movement input, meaning any
Mm-hmm.
pawn that has a movement component, it will work. This, however, will only work for this character.
Their character.
Yeah.
Okay.
So usually a good
Um,
practice talaga is gawin yung mga controls sa controller.
Sa
Yes?
controller. Okay. And would that is that the same logic like kung yun nga kasi kanina you brought up the idea of paano kung papasok ka sa vehicle. So like I
Yeah.
thought of GTA
Uh-huh.
and iba yung controls ng yung kotse sa yung vehicles lahat, yung airplane, yung helicopter, lahat sila iba yung controls.
Uh-huh.
So that would be in that like theoretically that would be here or where would those be?
Uh,
Paano mo
pu
ano yung practice na ilalagay? Like how would you
pwede naman we can still use this. Pero if there's, kasi GTA, you have way more controls than just like for backward, whatever. If it gets too complicated, then what happens is, baka better to have the pawn hold the, like what happens. Kasi vehicles in GTA, it's not just for backward. There's even like drifting. There's even using other actions like nitro, whatever. Right? It gets there's
oh
way too much
yeah,
na that this thing can't really handle. So in that in that point, better those controls will go to the pawn, the vehicle pawn.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I
it's
get you.
really based on the use case of it. It can work. This can work sana kung lahat sila really just walk or something. Then it would work. But if there's like way more other actions for like different possessable pawns, wala. Better you would do this. All right. Any other questions? No questions? All good naman? I mean, yeah, a bit information overload here. I understand, but we have to really get through this so you can start working on milestone one. If not, okay lang. We will still talk about this next week and maybe delve deeper on this.
Sorry, hindi na to. Medyo advanced yung question kasi. But kasi kanina pa ako na curious. Can you export blueprints as a CPP?
No, no,
Okay.
no. You cannot. You cannot. Yung blueprint stays as blueprints. There's no way to make it CPP. It won't know how the connections will work. Okay, so no questions. Let me just double check ulit attendance. We have, is Apala here? Apale. Nope. Bavaria. Yeah, no. Nope. Kovatan? Ah, no, Apale is here. Apale is here. Kovatan. Yeah, he's here. Labaco. Here. Lelin. Si Lance. None. Moratalia. Yeah, here. Navarrosa. Dapat meron today pero had to change it. Navarrosa. Yeah, actually dapat tuloy talaga kasi yeah, Navarrosa is here. Would have been better taught face to face. Anyway, we'll talk about it again next week. San Pedro, William, Jefferson, none. So yung wala dito is si Claveria, Lenin, and San Pedro. Yeah, I think that's it. Sige. So if there are no questions for today, you guys again can ask me or message some group, and we can also have a consultation kung di nyo talaga magets. Okay? So that's it for today. I will upload this in Big Sky. You guys can watch it again. And yeah, that's all for